Hello everyone, thank you so much for joining me today for another session of Explore the Tarot. So this is really for anyone who wants to start reading for themselves or for other people using tarot cards and really just getting a feel for the complexity of meanings behind each and every card and how we can start to intuitively draw out messages and begin to kind of weave together new messages and new meanings from the cards. So I have got my standard Smith Waite deck here, and I'm also going to draw from my favourite archetypes deck here. So let's get going. So today's card is the Queen of Wands. Beautiful. If you watched yesterday's video, I'd really say that today is kind of a slight upgrade on the Knight of Wands energy, which is why we are getting the Queen of Wands today. So the Queen of Wands is such a beautiful character, such a beautiful attitude and perspective to embody. She's all about social charisma, but at the same time being incredibly in touch with her own mystic roots, right? That's why we have the black cat bottom. So at the top she's this exuberant, radiant sunflower, and at the bottom she's very much in touch with her kind of shadow side, with the side of her that is really where she mines for all of the gold. Everything that we see above the ground at one point was growing below it. Seeds, they don't sprout out first from the ground, they sprout out in the soil, in the darkness. And that's what kind of this shadow energy is all about. And this is where the sunflower came out from and became radiant. So it's important to really acknowledge that, often our greatest gifts come from what feels quite a dark place, and sometimes our best days, the seeds of those best days are actually sown in the dark days. Yeah, so that's really what that's talking about. But let's draw an archetypes card and see what we can come up with. All right. The shadow. I love that. Love that. Isn't it wonderful when cards just appear like that? Okay, let's see what the shadow is all about in my little guidebook. The shadow. The unspeakable, the unwelcome, the denied. Although every card in the archetypes deck has a shadow potential, this card asks us to delve into the qualities of the shadow itself. We often think that the shadow can be purified, illuminated, and made right through effort and achievement. However, it is typically the case that our lofty pursuit of ascension and perfection is the very source of shadow material itself. By rejecting parts of ourselves and the world, we begin to separate from the whole. Rather than getting to know the qualities and content of our shadow, we busy ourselves with avoiding its presence. This is denial. When this card appears, it is time to take inventory of those things you've been denying. When the mind responds with, no, anything but that, you are touching shadow. Find support for this deep inner work and move through the shadow with patience and compassion. Wow. That literally gives me so many chills running up my body, and it actually makes me feel quite emotional as well. I think this is coming at such a beautiful time. Especially, if you're watching this around the time that it was published, we are just coming out of the Lionsgate portal time of the year, where we're really being asked to shine brightly in Leo season, where we're being asked to really think about what we want to manifest. And maybe you've been thinking about that in your life, regardless of the time of the year that you're watching this, and why you're kind of coming to this video. There's something in there that really struck me. It is typically the case that our lofty pursuit of ascension and perfection is the very source of shadow material itself. I think this is such a potent reminder of how often, especially as spiritual beings, if you practice a lot of spiritual, if you do a lot of spiritual practices, sometimes we get really caught on that train of wanting to ascend and wanting to be this very spiritual person and showing that out to the world and kind of being that sunflower, right? This sunflower that this Queen of Wands is holding, wanting to kind of be that radiant sun and really presenting ourselves that way to the world. However, when we get caught up in doing that, and I speak from personal experience, when we get caught up in just doing that, often what ends up happening is we start to see our dark days, our difficult days, our shadow days, the days when we're not feeling radiant. And it's perfectly natural and normal to feel that way as a human. But we start to view those days, those kind of black cat days, as an inconvenience. We start to see them as something that's getting in the way, and we push them away. And when we do that, what really starts to happen is, it's like that image I was talking about of the seed underground, the roots growing, right? The roots grow first in the darkness, and then the sprout comes out into the light. If you destroy the roots, if you destroy that well of darkness within you by pushing it away, by saying, this is inconvenient, I don't want to deal with this right now, I don't want to look at the parts of myself that I'm finding challenging, I want to just keep being that sunshine and that image that I have of myself. When we push those roots away, destroy those roots, what happens to the sunflower? It's going to die. It's going to wither away. And then what do we have? We have nothing left. We have to start again. We have to replant. We have to go through the process all over again. And there's nothing wrong in going through that process over and over again, of replanting a seed, sitting in that darkness with those roots, and then allowing something to grow out of that. Often we will self-sabotage that process for many reasons. The Queen of Wands is really here to ask you to embody that process. The queens in the tarot deck, they really represent a kind of more passive energy. They're very different to the knights in that they're not about taking action. They're not about a mission. They're about sitting in the being of what is and kind of really embodying this feeling of acceptance with the process, patience with the process, compassion for the process, compassion for yourself as you are going through that process. So the Queen of Wands, she really embodies this process of planting a seed in you. Say there is something that you want to manifest in your life. There is something that you want to create or build. There is this kind of image that you have of who you want to be. Well, the Queen asks us to really honour the true process of allowing that thing to come into being. And it begins in the dark. It begins in the shadow. Yeah? It begins when we plant that seed and let the roots sink in. Let them come down. The deeper your roots go, the stronger the flower is going to be. Or the tree, or whatever it is that you want to grow. So I really, really urge you today to sink in and to really allow yourself to sit in any darkness that you might have been holding at bay. Are there any kind of, have you been kind of covering who you really are or who you really want to be right in this moment with this kind of feeling of impatience, with this sense of I should do this or I need to do that, I need to work to make this happen? Yeah, well, flowers don't, obviously, I mean, nature is constantly, channeling energy into things, but it's a natural process, and you can't force a flower to open. It has to open and on its own terms, in its own time, as a result of this process of nourishing, out of this process of cultivating. Yeah, and you are exactly the same. So honor the seed that lives in you. Honor its need for the dark and the damp. Honor its need for the shadow. Because that's where the biggest, fullest flowers of who you are will begin to emerge. Yeah? And I just want to finally just say, you can see that the Queen of Wands, she's flanked by these lions. There is also this pyramid imagery here that comes through with the wands. There's a sense here of really honouring the mystery within you. You won't necessarily know what seeds it is that, what your seeds are going to grow into. They're like mystery seeds. And the lions really represent courage. Courage to stay with that process. Courage to sit with yourself. It's hard. To really look at yourself and say, wow, I feel that I've been so impatient with myself. I feel that I don't deserve certain things. I'm holding on to this idea of being afraid of being happy. Let me just sit with that for a minute, instead of trying to push it away or say that it shouldn't be here. Maybe this is where the seed is. Yeah. So I hope that's been insightful. I've really enjoyed today's session. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you again very soon.